Ignore my red nose if you can tell, if you can see it. It was because it was cold outside. But anyway, hi everybody, it's Mena. Welcome back to my channel. Or if this is the very first video that you're seeing of me, then... Hi everybody, it's Mena. Welcome back to my channel. Or if this is the very first video that you're seeing of me, then welcome to my channel. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you didn't already. I post every day except for Tuesday and Friday afternoon sometimes. And today I'm going to tell you guys a story about how we kicked a crying customer out of the restaurant. So this is a story about how I was working at my last job, and as I was working, we came across this lady who was crying super loud in the restaurant. And she was crying so loud, disturbing the other customers, so we had to kick her out of the restaurant because she was just making so much noise with her crying. So this is a story just to let you guys know that if you're old enough to know not to cry in a restaurant, it's kind of rude because there's other people trying to eat. I mean, I understand we all have our moments where we're upset. If you want to cry in a restaurant, go to the bathroom and cry. Don't cry so loud publicly because you'll disturb the other people dining in the restaurant. So I'm going to get started, and I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I hope you learn not to cry in a restaurant. Pardon me while I take a sip of my water. So this all started about, I think, 6 years ago. I was working a normal shift as a floater at my coffee shop job. A lot of you guys know, if you watch my channel, you know that I used to work as a floater in the restaurant. So in a restaurant slash coffee shop slash bar. Excuse me. I was working. It was super busy that day. I'm bussing a bunch of tables because there's dishes all over the place from customers, and I'm picking up bar glasses, and I'm just really, really busy. And then I check all the customers to see how they're doing, going back and forth, washing the dishes, bussing tables, back and forth, washing dishes and bussing the tables. And then as I come back to go pick up some dirty dishes that were left by two customers, I noticed this lady in the restaurant crying really loud. She was like in her 50s, or was it late 50s, early 60s. She was wearing glasses, and she was crying in the restaurant. She was crying super duper loud. So I'm a little concerned, and I'm one person who cares about people. So I walk up to the customer. I ask her, "Excuse me, ma'am, is everything all right? Are you okay?" And I really wanted to make sure she was okay because she was crying in the restaurant. And I wasn't sure exactly what she was crying about. She didn't tell me, despite the fact that I asked her, because I really wanted to be nice and help her, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do because I could barely understand her because she just kept crying and didn't say anything. And I thought that was kind of a little strange. So, my coworker, I walk up to my coworker and I tell her, "There's this lady crying in the restaurant, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what she's crying about, blah, 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 and she's crying kind of loud." So my coworker notices this, and she walks over and asks, "Ma'am, are you okay?" But the lady doesn't answer my coworker either. So we're a little confused. We're not understanding why this lady's crying because she's not telling us. Maybe, my guess was maybe she was crying about something personal and she didn't want to tell strangers about the personal problem she was crying about. I don't know. It was just the weirdest thing. I'm terribly sorry. I got a little distracted because I wanted to see what was going on in the cat room upstairs, and my mom was visiting the cat. So anyway, so nobody knows why this lady is crying, and the other customers in the restaurant are staring at her like it's kind of weird. And me and my coworkers don't know what, my coworkers and I, excuse me, don't know what to do. So we're trying to figure out why this lady's crying, but she's not telling us anything. And we think it's kind of weird that she's crying for no reason in the restaurant. So we are trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. And we don't know what to do. And my boss comes over and he asks, "What's going on?" And we're like, "We don't know." No, this lady is crying in the restaurant and she won't stop crying, and she's crying kind of loud, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, "I could hear it from over the music, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to have to talk to this lady because this is not okay that she's crying in the restaurant. So my boss walks up to the lady that's crying, and my boss goes, ma'am, you need to calm down. And if you don't stop crying, you have to leave the restaurant." So the lady is not listening to my boss either. And my boss isn't too happy with this lady's behavior because her crying is disturbing the other customers in the restaurant. And I don't know if this lady was taught proper restaurant manners, but she literally was crying super loud in a restaurant. And you're not really supposed to be crying in restaurants because there's other people trying to dine and they don't want to listen to your crying. It's kind of rude. And this lady would not stop crying, so we couldn't figure out why she was crying. So finally, my boss is really not happy with this lady, and he finally says, "Ma'am," he says this politely, "Ma'am, you're going to have to leave the restaurant." And the lady is still crying, and we still don't know why. So we are trying to get her to leave the restaurant because she will not stop crying and she won't tell us why she is crying. So finally, my boss says, "Ma'am, we're going to need you to leave the restaurant." So finally, the lady gets up, grabs her stuff, and leaves the restaurant. We never found out why she was crying, but she was crying really loud, and all the other people in the restaurant were like looking at her, and nobody was enjoying the sound of her crying because she was crying extremely loud in the restaurant. And sadly, we never found out why this lady was crying, but she wouldn't tell us, and she just kept crying, and we were trying to get her to stop, but she wouldn't. So finally we had to get her to leave because she just was like making so much noise with her crying and disturbing the other customers in the restaurant. So she had left maybe after 15 minutes after we had talked to her. And finally, everyone in the restaurant starts to enjoy their food, and it gets a little bit quieter now that the lady had left because she was crying very, very loud and disturbing the other people in the restaurant. And we thought it was kind of weird that she was crying in the restaurant for some strange reason that she wouldn't tell us. I don't know if it was personal, but she just kept crying in the restaurant, and the other customers were just looking at her like it was kind of weird that she was crying for no unexplained reason. And we kind of had to like just get her out of there because she was just like making so much noise and disturbing the other customers with her crying. So the moral of the story is, it is rude to cry in a restaurant. I mean, I understand we all have moments where we need to cry. If you are in a restaurant and you have to cry, go to the bathroom and cry because you don't want to cry around the other customers. Whereas, I mean, we all have moments where we get upset, but don't bring it to a restaurant because there's other people trying to eat and they don't want to get disturbed by your crying while they're trying to eat. So if you have to cry, go to the restroom and cry, because nobody really wants to hear you cry, especially if you cry super loud. It is not appropriate to cry loudly in a restaurant. Unless it's a child that has an uncontrollable tantrum, and if it is a child that has an uncontrollable tantrum, you should take your child outside until they have calmed down. If you're old enough to know you're not supposed to be crying in a restaurant, don't do it. If you have to cry, then leave the restaurant. It's just really not okay to be crying in restaurants. So that's a story about how we had to kick out a crying customer in the restaurant. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I post every day except for Tuesday and Friday afternoon sometimes. And I'll see you in another video soon. Bye!